a specific kind of fear that only television can create. The feeling that something has slipped into the signal. Not a movie, not a VHS tape you chose to play, but something that forces its way onto the screen without warning. That idea sits at the center of what people now refer to as the Wyoming Incident. The Wyoming Incident was when an emergency-style interruption replaced the regular broadcast with distorted imagery, unsettling tones, and brief phrases that felt more like psychological pressure than communication. Anyone who watches it understands immediately why it caught attention when published to the internet.
Wyoming today, making him the first to visit in preparation for the 2008 general election. Republican President Jackson. Mitt Romney also plans on visiting in Cheyenne on his presidential tour.
Now, it's important to be clear from the start. There is no confirmed recording, no station documentation, or any verified evidence that the Wyoming incident occurred as a real emergency broadcast interruption. What does exist is the story, a piece of broadcast folklore that has been repeated constantly for decades. However, when the incident is traced back to its source, it becomes clear that the Wyoming incident originated as an internet horror legend, often categorized alongside creepypasta, rather than an actual documented event. Despite that, the reason the story feels believable is rooted in reality. Broadcast alert systems have failed before, sometimes in serious ways. Back in the 70s, the UK had their TVs hijacked by someone claiming to be an alien from another world, named Vrillin. I made a whole video about the incident on my channel, if any of you are interested, so make sure to go check it out. Incidents like this demonstrate how fragile public trust becomes when an emergency system activates incorrectly. That's where the Wyoming incident draws its power, when a system designed to be comforting and sanitized behaves unpredictably. It hits people way harder than it usually would in other mediums. The story taps into genuine fear that television, a medium that people are conditioned to trust, can suddenly stop making sense. And when it does, there's no immediate explanation for what you're seeing. It isn't a verified event, but it represents a very real anxiety about broadcast authority. The idea that television can suddenly stop being a window into the world and become something else entirely, a signal that no longer explains itself. There's another kind of fear that television can create. Not when the signal breaks, but when the signal speaks with false authority. When something is presented calmly and professionally, through familiar faces, viewers are conditioned to trust it. That trust is exactly what made Ghostwatch so disturbing when it aired in the BBC in 1992. Ghostwatch was a broadcast on Halloween night, as what appeared to be a live paranormal investigation, hosted by well-known BBC personalities and filmed in a documentary style that closely mirrored real news programming of the time. The broadcast itself followed what appeared to be a straightforward paranormal investigation, centered on a North London council house where a family claimed to be experiencing unexplained disturbances. As the program unfolded, the focus gradually shifted to a supposed entity referred to as pipes.
Well, I didn't know what to say, they were that terrified, so I said it was pipes, it's central heating. So afterwards, whenever Kim heard something, she'd say, it's pipes, Pipes is here.
Rather than relying on overt horror imagery, Ghostwatch built tension through subtle details, objects moving slightly off screen, faint sounds caught by microphones, and brief, easily missed appearances of shadowy figures in the background. These moments were never really highlighted or replayed, mimicking the restrained pacing of real investigative broadcasts. Intercut with the house footage were studio discussions, phone-in segments with fake viewers, and commentary from presenters who treated the events with increasing concern, reinforcing the illusion that the situation was developing in real time and it was out of control. To many viewers watching in real time, there was no indication that what they were seeing was fictional. Not only that, but the phone number that was provided earlier in the film that was designed for viewers to call in was supposed to play a message on tape telling the caller that the broadcast wasn't actually a live show. But so many people called into the studio during the show that the tape that was supposed to play this message jammed, making it so that if you called in, you would get nothing but static. Ghostwatch felt indistinguishable from legitimate BBC reporting. The broadcast escalated slowly, presenting increasingly disturbing events in a restrained, realistic way, which only reinforced the illusion that something genuinely terrifying was unfolding live on air. In hindsight, the footage itself isn't especially disturbing by modern standards. What made Ghostwatch one of the most unsettling broadcasts ever aired was what happened after it ended. In the hours following the broadcast, the BBC received thousands of phone calls, including calls to emergency services from viewers who believed the events were real. Many viewers reported intense fear and distress, and the reaction was so widespread that it drew the attention of medical professionals. A paper published in the British Medical Journal later documented cases of post-traumatic stress reactions in children who had watched the program, making Ghostwatch one of the rare examples where a television broadcast was linked to measurable psychological harm. Perhaps the most tragic case connected to the broadcast was 18-year-old Martin Denham, a young man with learning difficulties who died by suicide 5 days after Ghostwatch aired. His family later told the Broadcasting Commission that he had become fixated on the program and was convinced that their home was haunted after watching it. While the coroner's verdict did not conclusively state that the broadcast caused his death, the case became inseparable from Ghostwatch's legacy and underscored how deeply some viewers were affected by the program's presentation. What makes Ghostwatch unsettling isn't the footage itself. Much of it is milquetoast by today's standards. But it wasn't framed as horror. It wasn't framed as fiction. It was framed as trusted public broadcasting. That framing gave the content a weight that it would have never had on film or VHS, causing the aftermath resulting in the death of an unfortunate viewer. The BBC later acknowledged the severity of the reaction, and the program was not rebroadcasted for many years. There's a particular discomfort that comes from watching something go wrong on camera, when everyone involved still believes they're in control. Not panic, not chaos, just a quiet moment where a situation crosses a line that everyone knows it can't come back from. The footage of Takeshi Yanagita, a Japanese stunt performer, captures this exact feeling. Yanagita was filming a stunt for a television game show. The objective of the game was to remain on this platform, placed in the middle of a mud patch. Then, something went wrong. During the setup, a stunt involved a fall from a short height into some mud, the kind of controlled danger that television relies on constantly, where the audience is meant to trust that every variable has been accounted for. But in this case, it wasn't. Yanagita dives into the mud, and he goes limp. At first, everyone on set thinks he's pretending that the fall was much worse than it was for show, but as the cameras kept rolling and Yanagita wouldn't move, it was clear that this wasn't part of the performance. Yanagita would then be rushed to the hospital. There it was revealed that he had made a severe injury to his neck. Takeshi Yanagita arrived in critical condition, but ultimately survived the fall. In the years to come, Yanagita would be restricted to a wheelchair, but thankfully, after extensive physical therapy, he has made what seems to be a full recovery. The footage itself is circulated over the years. What makes the footage unsettling isn't just the fall. At one moment, the other actors are making a joke of the fall, going as far as to rub his head further into the mud before realizing what happened. One moment it's ordinary entertainment. The next, it's obvious that something irreversible happened. That's what ultimately places the Yanagita footage in the same category as other disturbing broadcast moments. On September 27th, during a normal news interview in New Jersey, an emergency broadcast interrupts with a message that seems normal at first, but then ends with a weird set of words that confused viewers. It wasn't until later that people would understand the disturbing implications of this interruption. Take a look. Would you, could you, on a train? What the heck was that supposed to mean? And await further instructions? Well, later on, the official account of the station would issue a warning that stated that it was nothing more than an accident, and that the message wasn't supposed to air. Some think that it was a hijack, others think that it was a simple mistake. But just 2 days later, something would happen that would bring a whole new context to this message. On September 29th, a train would go crashing through Hoboken Station in New Jersey, killing one person and injuring hundreds. The crash was so bad, it caved in the ceiling of the station and made national news. Many were hospitalized, and countless images circulated online of the aftermath of the crash. Many wanted answers as to how this crash managed to happen. Some, however, would immediately be reminded of something strange that happened just a few days earlier. Would you, could you, on a train? And not only that, but look at the date, September 29th, the exact date of the crash. Many would immediately draw connections to the broadcast, saying that it was an exact prediction of what happened. Later on, the official story was brought to light. Witnesses found the train engineer slumped over his controls, unconscious. Some believe that the broadcast was the activation of a sleeper agent. After all, the end of the message does say to await further instructions, and includes the exact date of the crash. What if somebody important was supposed to be on that train that day? Someone that was marked for death by someone in power. A train accident would be the perfect way to do it and get away with it. However, no one of significant importance was on the train that day. If there was, then I would say that this theory is pretty much confirmed. But alas, no politicians or financiers were harmed in the making of this crash. But this doesn't really mean that this theory is dead in the water. In fact, far from it. There have been many cases of supposed sleeper agent assassinations that have failed, namely the many assassination attempts on Fidel Castro, which many believe were the result of sleeper agents activated by the CIA. What if this train disaster was another one of those failed attempts? What if the person they were trying to kill didn't use the train that day? What if the agent was late to the station? After all, the time in the broadcast says 2 a.m., while the crash took place much later in the morning than that. I'm not saying it's confirmed by any means, but it's certainly worth consideration. So what do you think? Is this interruption a sign for a sleeper agent, or nothing but a simple mistake? Comment what you think below. In the late 1970s, live television often treated danger as entertainment. Stunts were performed in real time, with minimal safeguards, and the expectation was that whatever happened would simply become a part of the broadcast. Few performers embraced that risk fully as Bill Shirk, an escape artist known for endurance feats that pushed the limits of what the human body could survive. One of Shirk's most extreme demonstrations involved being buried alive on live television. The premise was stark and unforgiving. Shirk would be sealed inside of a plastic see-through coffin and lowered several feet underground. There was no hidden air supply, no mechanical escape system. The only way out was to break free, force the coffin open, and dig upward before oxygen ran out. Bill is seen as very nervous before the event, even going as far as to say he feels very bad about what he's going to do.
Hope I make this. I got a bad feeling about this thing. That is a bad feeling. This This rain did it. My wife's not here.
Dave?
But who knows, I may go...
But by that time, it was already too late. Everyone had gathered together to watch the event, and he wasn't going to let them and the production team down. Bill climbs to the coffin and is lowered into the grave. Then they begin to pile on the concrete and dirt, and it's then that Bill's fears would be realized.
Take him up! Take him up! Everybody, get back! Get back out of the way! Back away!
Each shovel of dirt added more weight, and with it, more pressure. Underground, the earth began to settle, and it was then that the concrete and dirt rapidly sank. Bubbles were seen escaping to the top. There was only one answer to what the crew was seeing. The coffin had collapsed under the weight, and Bill's life was in jeopardy. There were no signals from below. What viewers could not see was that the coffin had partially collapsed, pinning him in place and accelerating oxygen loss. The decision to stop the stunt came abruptly. Workers rushed in with shovels, tearing into the dirt above the coffin. The broadcast atmosphere shifted from performance to emergency. When the coffin was finally reached and forced open, Shirk's body was pulled out, limp from oxygen deprivation. He had come within moments of suffocating while cameras were still rolling. Shirk survived, but the stunt was widely acknowledged as a failure rather than a near-miss success. Later accounts made it clear how badly the situation had been miscalculated. The strength of the coffin, the density of the soil, and the speed at which the environment became lethal. The margin for error had effectively been zero. What makes the incident disturbing in hindsight is not just the physical danger, but the setting. This was not a controlled stage act or a rehearsed illusion. It was a real human body buried underground, deteriorating in real time while television stood by, ready to broadcast the outcome. For a brief moment, entertainment and fatal risk were indistinguishable, and the only thing that prevented a death on air was last-second intervention. In January of 2001, one of Brazil's most trusted and recognizable children television programs came dangerously close to catastrophe. Zusa Park wasn't just a show, it was a cultural institution. Bright colors, cheerful music, and a studio packed with children defined its identity. Parents trusted it. Children felt safe there. There was a sense of safety that would be tested in a matter of seconds. During a live taping at TV Globo Studios in Rio de Janeiro, a fire suddenly ignited on set. Flammable foam and decorative materials near the stage structure caught flame, likely triggered by studio lighting or pyrotechnic effects. What started as a small fire escalated rapidly. Flames climbed upwards, and thick black smoke poured into the enclosed space. Hundreds of people, many of them children, were now inside of a smoke-filled studio with limited exits. Panic followed quickly. Parents rushed to gather children. Crew members shouted instructions. Performers tried to help guide the audience out, while the production environment, designed for spectacle rather than evacuation, worked against them. The smoke was the most dangerous element. Even without widespread burns, inhalation quickly overwhelmed those closest to the fire. Several children and adults collapsed or became disoriented as they tried to escape. Emergency responders arrived as the evacuation continued, treating victims for smoke inhalation and burns on site. In total, more than 24 people were injured. No one died, but investigators later concluded that the outcome hinged on minutes. Had the fire spread faster or the evacuation been delayed, the result could have been far worse. What made the incident resonate so deeply was its setting. This was not a late-night stunt show or a risky broadcast experiment. It was a children's program built on trust, warmth, and routine. The contrast between the image of a bright, child-friendly environment to a fiery hellscape in the matter of moments really catapults this incident to another level of disturbing. Zusa Park continued, but the incident marked a permanent shift in how live entertainment was produced behind the scenes. Hold up a minute. Before we end the video, I gotta give a huge shout out to all of you guys. In the past few days, my channel went from 0 subscribers all the way up to 1,000. I always just kind of made videos for fun, and I thought it'd be cool if a couple people checked them out, but 50,000 viewers is unreal. Honestly, it's pretty unreal that 50,000 people watch one of my videos. It's kind of hard to put into perspective, really. That being said, it's probably time I get a new microphone setup, since my current microphone setup consists of an iPhone that I balance on a multivitamin bottle, but yeah, that's about it. I hope you're enjoying the content, and if there's a type of content you want to see on this channel, don't hesitate to comment below. That being said, I'll see you in the next video.